So we're going to try to conclude this chapter of Nekiyus today. Right, so we're talking about the last stretch talking about Taiva for COVID. So let's just revisit again our last question from last time, which I think is a very important question, which I don't have a good, clear resolution on, right? And the question is that when it comes to Midos, let's just recap, right? When it comes to Midos, he spoke about four. He spoke about four Midos. He spoke about Gaiva, then he spoke about Kas, then he spoke about Kina, right? And then he spoke about Taiva. So four types of midas. In a certain sense, it appears that those are two, as this says, a common language in Gemara talk as Shnaim Shehem Arba. I mean, two that are really four, right? Two that are really four. Meaning there's one in the Gaiva category, right? There's Gaiva, and related to Gaiva is Kas, meaning how dare you approach me or whatever it is, and right, how dare you, right? I'm over here and you're over there. That's Gaiva. And then there is Kina and Taiva. Those are related because Kina is envy, not jealousy, but envy. The way he perceives Kina is envy. Even though, again, sidetracking now for a second, the word like we say Hashem is El Kana, right? He's a jealous God. But jealous God is not a good translation because Lekane, for example, Pinchas in this week's parsha, he Kinei le'eleikov. He was jealous for his God. Again, over here, Kana does not mean jealous, right? Kanoim poigim boy. We say there's something to kanoi, meaning he is a zealous person, right? So jealous and zealous, even though in English, again, they just sound the same, but they're not related. In Hebrew, they are related, right? So Kina sometimes can be also translated as an expression of anger, is what I'm saying, right? Not in his terminology. Over here, it's envy, and it's, hey, I want what you will have, right? I want what you have, right? So it's an expression of desire, right? I want this. How come you have this and I don't have this? I want this, right? And then he went to Kaiva, and then he went to Taiva. I'm sorry. And then he went to Taiva, and Taiva, he spoke about Taiva's moment and Taiva's COVID, right? And the desire for money and the desire for honor. Okay, so two questions that we had on this. So two questions that we had on this was, why is Taiva of COVID under the category of Taiva? Why is it not under the category of Gaiva? Right? Question one. Question two, which is the same question, is when he spoke about Taiva, he speaks about Mama and money and COVID honor, but he doesn't speak about Taiva as we think of Taiva, which is good food, good, women, sensual pleasures, physical pleasures. It talks about money and honor, which is really non-physical. It's, you have to. These are elevated taivas. Where's the simple taiva? I want a nice juicy steak. Simple taiva. So why doesn't he speak about that? Right? So these are the two questions. So I don't know if I have a full resolution. I was trying to speak to somebody about it today. But the working theory right now is that he did speak about actions before, right? He spoke about macholas asuros, for example, forbidden foods. He spoke about forbidden relations, arayas, or physical.
Right. You brought it down to
the problems,
level, yeah.
Right? So those taivas are an expression of actions, right? Meaning when you're working on a certain avera, right? I see that I have a problem with, let's say my desire for women, right? Meaning the action. Let's say I have a problem. I can't help myself by looking where I shouldn't be looking, right? So I want to work on that. I want to be a good Jew, and I want to overcome this Yetzer Hara, right? I want to overcome this. I realize that in order for me to overcome this Yetzer Hara, I need to start working on that taiva, on the source of that Yetzer Hara, which is my taiva, right? So that's why I'm assuming that sometimes midas are a subcategory of actions, and sometimes actions are a subcategory of midas, right? So in this section, he's more focused on the midas and the actions that are subcategories of those. And until now, he was focused on actions, as was self-understood, but some of the midas are included. Okay, that's point one. Point two is the difference between kavod and gaiva. I think, again, working theory is that there is gaiva. Gaiva is an internal sensation, meaning, and gaiva has a variety of expressions. Right, a variety of expressions. Meaning, sometimes the same person who has the same gaiva can act as if he's Mount Everest, and the same person can act as if he's the Mariana Trench, right? Meaning he could be both, and yet they could be the same expression of the same gaiva, the same midah, but different expressions, because gaiva is an internal state, right? It's not, you don't receive gaiva. Right. It's true that you may receive kavod as a result of gaiva, but the midah of gaiva is my internal state of being.
Right, and it drives your actions.
Right. On the other hand, kavod, right? Kavod is not necessarily expression of gaiva. Kavod is I receive kavod. I enjoy, right? So I don't have to be necessarily a bal gaiva, so to speak, in order for me to enjoy the pleasures of kavod. Okay, because I enjoy receiving kavod. I enjoy being ahead of the other guy. Okay, I get shlishi or shishi, not the other guy, right? He gets shlishi, I'm bothered by it because I didn't get the kavod, he got the kavod, right? So kavod is something that I receive, and therefore it's right. Anything that I need to receive is related to taiva. Anything that I have and I experience within, that's my guy. That's gaiva, right? So he puts kavod into the things that I receive, right? And therefore I enjoy, and therefore I desire. Okay? That's what comes out over here. Again, what comes out, it's interesting. I was just learning with Bodhi this Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Akina hataiva v'hakovod metziin es ha'odam min ha'odam, right? Hakina hataiva v'hakovod metziin es ha'odam min ha'odam, right? So it comes out to be envy, right? Akina, taiva, desire, hakovod, and honor, they take a person out of this world, right? So different meforshim have a different approach. Meaning, according to some meforshim, these are three very different midas. Kina, and some translate it as more actually on the anger, what's the word? Type of a kina, right? So taiva is taiva, that's, everybody agrees taiva means taiva. And kavod, they translate as in the gaiva. And the gaiva, what's the word? Category, right? So according to some meforshim, hakina, hakavod, v'taiva is three different midas, that negative midas that people have, and therefore they include pretty much all negative midas. While according to Ramchal, what's going to come out is that hakina, hataiva, v'kavod are really just three different expressions of taiva, of the same midah, right? Meaning, my desire to possess, either by envy, either by desire, or either by chasing after honor, will lead me to lose the thing that I really want to possess, which is the enjoyment of this world, right? The Mishnah is saying that my desire to possession, here are the three expressions of possession, kina, taiva, and kavod, right? So in the Ramchal's world, it seems that this is going to be all in the taiva category. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So let's see where we up to. It says so klolei shel dover. That's where we're up to in the text, right? We finished till now. He gave us different examples of different people in Tanakh that had their downfall as a result of kavod, right? And kavod again over there. The example was that I should get kavod and not the other guy, right? So in other words, again, that kina taiva relationship is very close, right? It's very close. Okay, so klal moving down. Klal shel dover. So here's the general idea. Kavod hu hadoichek as halev haodem yoser mikol hachukos v'achamodos sheba'olam. Okay, honor presses upon the heart of a person more than any other desires, yearnings in the world. Okay. Again, very strong statement.
It's a very serious
very strong statement. You would have said COVID. Some people don't need COVID. Some people want money. They don't care about COVID. Give me some money. Who cares about it? You can keep your COVID. Give me $1 billion and keep your COVID. Right? But he's saying no. He's saying that's not true. He's saying that.
I mean, again, all the desires are. There's a person in the middle of these desires. I want steak. I want money. I want women. This is for my pleasure.
Right. I'm not sure if I is the key in the pleasures. I mean, of course it's I, but
I mean, what else is?
I mean, of course it's always I. It's always about the I. I mean, I understand that, but it's not really. It's an enjoyment. It's just an enjoyment. It's a drug. It's a drug. COVID is a drug. Money is a drug. Women are a drug. These are drugs that give me pleasure, and I want that drug. That if it's, and the person that I was talking to today about this was suggesting that some people want money for power, right? Could be he's not speaking about that person over here, because if it's money for power, then it's power,
right?
Meaning the money is just a tool. Meaning, but some people just want money for money. You know, it's a sickness. Maybe it's not logical. It's not reasonable. But could be he's speaking about just somebody who wants money for money, and it's a taiva that they can't necessarily explain. But that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to tie this into COVID, right?
Right, so COVID also. Some people want COVID for power, and maybe that's not the COVID that he's speaking about.
COVID really makes you feel in the center of the world. If I get the COVID, I'm the most important guy.
Right. Again, then you're bringing COVID back to Gaiva,
right.
And I'm saying that's not the COVID that he's speaking about. COVID is just simply like again, a taiva is it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure-seeking experience. I may not be such a great balgaiva. I just like the COVID. It's very different things.
Okay.
Or possibly very different things. Again, that's the working theory I have right now. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyways, again, the reason why I think we mentioned this at the end of last time is because we read the sentence is that COVID, money can have a limit, Money. I have $1 billion. Yes, I want $2 billion, but it's still limited. It's still limited. COVID is really an unlimited thing. So therefore, there is no, it's a very spiritual in a certain sense. It's an abstract concept, and therefore it's much more open. Right, much more open. Okay. If not for COVID, he's saying, it really all of your other taivas would also be diminished because it would be enough for you to eat whatever you can get your hands on. And you would wear anything that would cover your nakedness. Live in a house that is utilitarian, that can cover you protect you from your from anything that is damaging. And his parnasa would be easy. Okay, would be easy, right? Because he wouldn't go crazy earning as much money as possible. lehasher klal, and he's not going to. He wouldn't put so much effort in become wealthy. Ela shelevilti ruois atzmoi shofel upochos mireyav. But if not for the fact that he doesn't want to see himself in a lower state than his peers. Machnis atzmai be'ovi hakurazu. So therefore he puts himself into the thickness of this wall. Meaning, in other words, it's an expression, meaning he takes on all of these things because mainly for COVID. And COVID, again, he understands, also very close to Kina, this idea that I don't want to be less than the other guy. Ve'ein kates l'chol hamolei. So then there is no end to his labor, to his toil. Okay, so let's just, again, for a second, let's just digest this a little bit.
So he's saying this is the driving force that really pushes all the other things?
Right. Yeah, and I don't know how far. So the Kahela says, right? Reisias Maisa Adam Hu Kinos Ishmir Eihu. Right? I've seen the actions of men, and they're all but envy. Men, fell one of another. Right? So he says that everything is about kinos, is about envy. Right? So competition, right? In a certain sense, everything is. May not realize it, but the whole world is in a constant state of competition, right? So, again, the simple things. If I get into this college, that means somebody doesn't get into this college. If I get this job, that means somebody else didn't get this job. That's just the nature of things. I don't necessarily think about it that way, right? Because maybe that person didn't even apply for that job. Obviously, if he applied and he didn't get, that's obvious competition. But maybe he didn't even apply for that job. But that's because he decided, well, why should I compete for that job? I'm going to go for a different job. But the point is, he avoided the competition. So therefore, it was really all about the competition in the first place, right? So in a certain sense, everything is about, a competition. And we just allocate resources to the best way possible in the state of competitive demands, right? So part of that, again, expanding on that idea in our personal state of being, it's also like that. Meaning, there's going to be always the top 1%. You can't. Just the nature of mathematics is that the 1% will always be the 1%. It doesn't make a difference if the 1%, their net worth is $100 billion or their net worth is $1, and as long as the other 99% is less, so they're always going to be the 1%. They're always going to be the 1%. So again, I'm coming back to this idea: is that kavod? I would say it's kina. It's not kavod. He's him stuffing this kavod bag with everything. It seems weird to me right now. Again, meaning I understand that kina, like we said, kina and taiva are related, but still, let's put things in their proper place. So, if kavod is a sense of enjoyment, kina is not necessarily enjoyment. Kina is just
it is. I want something.
I want something else, but I understand maybe. I understand. Meaning, kina is really when you don't get the thing. Kina is the sensation that you have when you don't get the thing that you want.
Once you get it, it goes away.
But once you get it, no, it doesn't go away. Then once you get it, then it becomes
something
kavod.
Okay.
Understand? Meaning, kina is before you get it, and kavod is after you get it. Kina maybe is your motivation, but it's the thing that you want. You don't want the kina. The kina is a self-defeating, in a certain sense, emotion. But okay, maybe I don't know. Okay, let's move on. Fine, but there's definitely this truth that there's the utilitarianism in our daily life, and then there is the fluff, right? And most of the fluff is because that's what everybody does these days. Why do you want this suit? Well, everybody wears a suit like that. I mean, you see it by kids, right? Why do you want these sneakers? What do you mean? My friends have these sneakers, right? So we see that we measure the thing that we want by what everybody else is doing. Because we want COVID. We want COVID. Okay. So, these three things, and I think he's going to explain now what does that mean. And they also said, don't seek greatness and don't desire honor. So again, this is maybe proof for him that chemda and koved are put together as one thing. Kama, for example, now he's going to explain what that means. Why are they? I think that's what he's saying now. Why are they matzina sodom in the oilam? How do they remove people from the world? Kama heim. How many people do you see shemisanim barov that are starving in hunger? V'yashpilu es atzman leisparnes min tzedakah, and they degrade themselves to collect money from charity. V'lo yisasku b'malacha shelo tihyu mechuberes beineihem. But they refuse to do labor that is not dignified in their eyes. Mirosam, from their fear, pen yimait koidem, that their honor will be diminished. Right? Again, let's just, this is more, I think of as, again, this is 18th century depiction where they had gentlemen, right? The idea of a gentleman, right, they were called gentles because they did not work. Right, the great aristocratic profession of doing absolutely nothing. Working means, common folk, right? So now you have this great nobleman, he's a baron, he's a count, but, his estate is in shambles, his estate is in ruin, and he's putting up appearances as if he is, keeping up with the other Joneses, right? But on the other hand, he has no food to eat, but he can't work because that's beneath his station to work, right? That's what I'm assuming his picture. But on the other hand, it's not that far distant from our reality. Meaning, let's say you have a guy who's a lawyer, right? And he lost his job and he can't find a job as a lawyer. Is he going to go be an electrician's assistant? No. No, he's not.
He's going to want to be a lawyer.
He's not going to. He's going to be unemployed for 2 years before he thinks about even getting a job as an electrician's assistant or a school bus driver. I mean, it's not reasonable, right? And the same way, and we understand it's not reasonable. Right. That sounds preposterous, right? You were a doctor and now you're going to be a bus driver, right? On the other hand, is it more preposterous than collecting money from charity? But for some reason in our world, you see guys, the schnorrers come like as there's no problem snoring. It's a very honorable profession. But a bus driver, a Jew, a school bus driver, it's crazy. Okay? But so says the Ramchal, is there a bigger joke than this? Right? And as the Rabbi Yitzchak used to say, right, something, how many bizyonas will a person tolerate for a little bit of COVID? Right? So that's what he's saying over here, that people will degrade themselves in all kinds of ways in order to avoid what they think is degradation. And these people would prefer batola, right, meaning doing nothing, which brings to insanity, and to perversion, guzzle and theft, and all sorts of averos. Why? So they do not lower their stature or to experience embarrassment of their honor, which is really hamedumeh. It's really fake. It's not real. However, our sages, which guided us in the ways of the truth, right? Omru, they said, love labor, and hate lofty positions. I'd rather you spread out nevela, right? Not nevela, dead animals in the marketplace. Right. And don't say Gavra Rabba and Kahana, and I'm a great person, I'm a kohen, I'm right. A person should rather do a labor that's foreign to him, but do not become dependent on other creations. Right. So again, in our Chachamim's worldview, right? Aristocracy is fake, basically. Right? Klal Advarim. So again, the general rule is Hakoved hu min ha'mechsholos hayoser g'dolim shel adam. Hakoved is one of the greatest stumbling blocks for a person. V'yef shel aliyos eved ne'eman lekoinen. It's impossible for him to be a dependent eved servant to his master. Calls man shuchas al kvoid atzmoy. If he is also, if he also cares about his own honor. Okay, let's go back to that in a second. Right. So again, he's saying a very strong statement. He's saying that it's impossible for a person to be a true eved Hashem if he's also concerned about his own honor. Again, which I understand. If you put back kavod into the category of gaiva, I understand this phrase kind of very well, because gaiva really and avdus of Hashem are contradictory things. It's either you or God. It can't really be both. And I think he said something like that before. But now we're saying kavod is just it's just a thrill. Kavod is nothing but a thrill, right? So, what?
I mean,
why can't there be an eved ne'eman lekoinoi calls manshu chas l'koid atzma? That's number one. Number two is we also understand. Again, it's not your kavod, but if you're a Talmud Chacham, right, you have an obligation to demand kavod.
So maybe that's what you're referring
to. That's not. No, he's saying that's not for you. He's not talking about that now. Meaning that's not your kavod. You just have to demand kavod, but you have. Meaning that's in a higher madrega. I mean, obviously, if one of us demands kavod for the sake of Torah, we know what the real motivation is. Right. But assuming so, it's a real madrega. First, you have to be strong enough to get rid of your own kavod, and then be strong enough to demand kavod, but not demand it for your own sake. That's a very serious madrega. Yeah. Right? Okay, Zeu Mashamar David HaMelech, Allah Shalom. This is what David HaMelech says, but to Michal, Unikaloisi oid mizois, ve'isi shofel be'enai. Right? When he was dancing in front of the Torah, he says, I would lower myself even more. Right? So David HaMelech could not care about his own kavod, and that was the big difference between him and Shaul. So Shaul was on one hand too much of an onav, because we see that when it was time to push back on the people and to, right, he couldn't. He was hiding. He was initially, when Shmuel wanted to introduce him, he was hiding, so he wasn't onav. On the other hand, when it came to fighting against Amalek, Shaul did not kind of push ahead, and he was cared about appearances and didn't want Shmuel to publicly embarrass him. He cared about his appearances. Right, and that's why Michal, the daughter of Shaul, also cared about his appearances, and David the Melech was like, I don't care about appearances, and so that's why David the Melech becomes, so to speak, the real Melech, right? Va'kavod ha'amiti. What's real kavod? Kavod ha'amiti eina la'yedias ha'torah be'emes. Kavod ha'amiti eina la'yedias ha'torah be'emes. The true kavod is nothing but knowledge of Torah in truth. The real, genuine honor is truthful, real Torah knowledge. Okay? I would have said, again, I don't know why he says Yedias Torah be'emes. And I would have said, what is the true honor? Okay, you want to connect it to spiritual something. Okay, true honor is being an Eved Hashem. I understand that, right? That's the true honor. Meaning, your honor is God's honor. He did say that. He said, true honor is Torah's knowledge. I mean, I get it, but
the rest is a derivative, right? But then he goes to the source.
Right, but what's the source? I would have said the other way around. That's what I'm saying. I would have said being an Eved Hashem is true honor. Part of being an Eved Hashem is Yidis Torah be'emes. True. You can't be an Eved Hashem, as he's going to say in the next chapter. He's going to say that you can't be an Eved Hashem if you don't know the Torah, because Torah is the will of Hashem. But where's the honor? The honor is you attach to God. He's saying, it seems like he's saying something else. He's saying there is, so to speak, God imbued Torah with its own, so almost like thing. Like what we say by Tishah B'Av, it's better that you leave me, God says, but don't leave my Torah. It sounds like the Torah itself was endowed with honor. Yeah, okay, that's what it seems. Okay. Again, just these. There is no honor about Torah. Anything outside of that is for false honor. Kavod medumeh, hevel, it's nothing. And it's useless. Hanoki, so somebody who's in level Nekiyus lihinoko is to clear himself, v'litaher, and purify, he sticks in this word, tahara, memeno, tahara, gemura, complete tahara, oz yetzliach, then he will be successful. V'hine kalalti ad heinen rabim protei Nekiyus. Again, now we're in the final stretch. Till now, so till here, I collected many of the details of Nekiyus. V'zeh binyanav l'kol shara mitzvah mitzkulam. Right, and this should be a map which you could use for other mitzvahs and other midos. Right, in other words, right, Nekiyus is about clearing out all of the branches. Right, and every mitzvah, like you said, has its own branches that need Nekiyus. Right, so Yishma Chacham Yosef Lakov, a wise person will hear and he will take more lessons. V'novoin tachbulois yikneh, and man of understanding will figure out stratagems. Okay, v'hine ineni yochel lehachish. This is one of these beautiful paragraphs. V'hine ineni yochel lehachish. I cannot deny sheyesh k'tzas toirach le'odam le'agiya ala Nekiyus hazeh. I cannot deny that there is a little bit of toil that is necessary for a person to reach this level of Nekiyus. Right? Again, this is just.
Whoa. Let's say it again.
This is Ramchal speaking. I cannot deny that there is a little bit of toil that's necessary to reach this level of Nekiyus. Okay, a little bit of toil. Meaning, again, this Ramchal is, again, my mouth would not say these words because, I'm still holding on page, 30 of this book. But Ramchal is saying, okay, when you get to page 216, okay, a little bit of effort will become necessary on your part. Bafal Pikein, and still in all, Oimer Ani, I say, she'ein tzarech kol kach k'moy shenireh l'chayra. It's not as necessary as much as may appear in the beginning. V'amachshava b'davar hazeh kosher min ha'maisa, and the thought of accomplishing this is greater than the deed. Ki kasher yosim ha'odam b'liboy, when a person places in his heart, v'yikba b'ratzoyna, will set in his will, b'kviyus, liyois mibale hamida toiva azois, to be one of the people who acquire this midah of Nekiyus. Hine b'mat hergel, with a little bit of habit, sheyargil atzmei bezeh, that he brings himself to this. Toshav loy kala harbe yoiser, will turn to be much easier mima shehoya yochel lachshoy, what he thought. Zed dover, this is something shehanisoyan yechiach amitoy, that testimony, right? The test, the experience proves its validity. In other words, I've been here, I've done this, and I know this is true, right? Okay, so he's saying Nekiyus seems complicated, but it's easier than it is. He's also going to tell you that, listen, in the next chapter, how do you acquire Nekiyus? Well, listen, you can't have Nekiyus until you know everything that's in the Torah, right? Because how are you going to have Nekiyus unless you know everything, all the halachas that are in the Torah. And you have to just know them very clearly. You can't just know them, because you have to know them how they all fit into their proper categories, right? So basically, it's really not a big deal.
I start off there, and then
right, just then a little bit of effort, and then it's all you know. Okay, shkoyach.